Okay, so this is the second session on Constitution. In the last class, we just have an introduction of what the Constitution of India all about, and then we focus on the importance of preamble, from where the preamble was taken, adopted, and the architect, etc. And in that session, we also discuss about the schedules. How many schedules are there? Schedules are totally 12 schedules, right? The ultimate aim of learning this constitution for the CBSE NET exam is to learn about the constitution basics and the education system in India and the institution and its act and current affairs. Okay, so let's start. So preamble we discussed, 12 schedules also we discussed. Now we are giving little importance to the 25 parts and the articles inside the parts. You know what? Originally we have only 395 articles originally, and later we added few articles and parts along with the Constitution of India. So that's why if the UPSC or the CBSE asks you what is the original number of articles in the Indian Constitution, then your answer is not 465 plus, it is 395. Okay, and the original number of parts is also 22, and now it is 25 plus. Okay, so preamble and schedules we finished. Now we are focusing on the parts and the articles inside each parts. Constitution, the preface is preamble and the chapters are parts. The lessons inside the chapters are called articles, and the separate booklet we know that we call it as schedules. So let's go. So the basic questions that ask for the CBSE and the UPSC SSC questions are basically connected with the part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 and part 4a. As we know that the part 1 definitely connected with the land here in this region. So land means what? The boundaries inside. So union and its territory are mentioned in part 1 of the Indian Constitution, and we have article 1, 2, 3, 4 are there mentioned in part 1. So how many articles are there in part 1? We have to say that the answer is 4 articles are there in part 1. And which topics part 1 is dealing with? We have to say that we are dealing with union and its territories. And the second part, they are talking about the citizenship. The people who are living in this region, in this land, and their citizenship is mentioning in part 2. You know that how many articles? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 articles are talking about the citizenship of Indian person. So it is mentioned in part 2 of the Constitution. And if the land is there and second is citizenship, then the third one is those rights we are giving, those privileges we are giving to that citizen who is living in this land. So that's why the part 3, it is fundamental rights. It's a very important portion for your exam, fundamental rights from article 12 to 35. So we have to know each and every points associated with the fundamental rights. And the next one is part 4, that is DPSP, Directive Principle of State Policy. In the last session also I mentioned about the DPSP. So when a state will plan to implement a act or a rule or regulations related to the citizenship of a region, they will definitely follow some principles, directive principles. So those directive principles definitely have a connection with socialism, liberal ideas or Gandhian principles, right? So those principles that the state should adopt while they making a policy, that is directive principle of state policy from article 36 to 51. As we know that 51A was later added, it was not a part of the Constitution initially. So that is fundamental duties in part 4A. So definitely how many topics we are discussing today? Part 1 to part 4A. It's very important, don't forget. So let's start with part 1. As I already mentioned, it is talking about union and its territory. So part 1 is union and its territory, article 1 to 4. Okay. And first part of the Constitution, definitely, this is the first part of the Constitution, deals with the union, and it says that the article 1 to 4. So I will say naming of the state, that is in article 1. It says that article 1 says that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. So you know that we have 28 and now it is 29 states we are working as a union. So India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. Okay. The term union, you see the name union of states. The union word, the word union, the term union was suggested by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Okay. So why they are using the term union? Union means federalism or the federation, Indian federation. Federation means what? The states are connected and become a Indian union or Indian federations. And there is also one more important point hidden in the term union, that is the states have no right to secede from the federation because they can't go away. That means the Tamil Nadu is planning to go with the Sri Lanka. No, it's not possible because it is a state that have no rights to secede from the federation, but we are a union of states. So this is there in the Article 1. Okay. And Indian Constitution follow the Canadian pattern where the term union has been preferred to the federation. So we have a Canadian touch when you talk about the unions. Okay. And the second one is Article 2 of the Indian Constitutions. Article 2 is the new states. We are creating new states and giving names to the new states and all. It is mentioned in Article 2. And Article 3, they are talking about the boundaries. Definitely you know that there is a boundary problem between one state and the other. So those matters are written in there in the Article 3 of the Indian Constitution in Part 1. Right? And Article 4, laws for 2 and 3. What is that? 2 and 3 means new states and its boundary. The laws regarding laws and regulation, rules and regulations are there in the Article 4. So Article 1 to 4, it is in the Part 1 of the Constitutions that talks about union and its territory. Right? Okay. So I need to tell you something more about the federation and the union. See, after independence, our India is not a states like what we have right now. And it is a states of those controlled by some kings or rajas, and some regions are controlled by the British, right? So it is a mix of all these things. So at that time there was a committee that was talking about how we are going to control or how we are going to rule the states. So we are a different class of states, that is kingship, Raja based states and British based states. So there is a committee who suggested that it is good for us to follow the same pattern. So S.K. Dhar committee, that committee said that the basis on the administration we can rule the rest of the states. And that idea was rejected by the parliament at that time. And next they added one more committee, that is JVP committee. So JVP means what? Jawaharlal Nehru, V for Vallabhbhai Patel, and P for Pattabi Siddharamaiah. They also projected the importance of administration oriented states. But the S.K. Dhar and the JVP committee suggestion was rejected by the government. And they appointed one more committee, that is Fasal Ali Commission. Fasal Ali Commission come to an important point that we are going to make states or reorganize the states on a language basis or linguistic basis. That's a good idea. So definitely the Fasal Ali Commission's report, along with the Fasal Ali we have H.S. Hunsru, K.M. Panikkar, and they also suggested this linguistic based approach, and the state and the union or the government Fasal Ali Commission report was accepted by the government, and they started making states based on language or linguistic basis. So that's the important 3 state organization committee and the history. As a result of this state reorganization, 14 states was initially created and 6 union territories were created on November 1, 1956. And before that, in 1953, the first language-based state created, that is Andhra. And state reorganization in 1956 on 14 states and 6 UTs. And again, the reorganization was happening in 2000. 26 Chhattisgarh November 1, 27 Uttarakhand November 9, and 28 Jharkhand November 15. And the latest state, as we know, it is the 29th one, Telangana, on June 2, 2014. Okay, and it is a very important point, state reorganization. And as we know that we have acquired some territories from France, that is Pondicherry in 1962, and we also taken Goa and Daman and Diu Islands from Portuguese in 1961. Okay, and remember one important point, this Goa become Goa became a state in 1987. Okay, and Sikkim became the state in 1975. So I will mention one amendment act that makes the Sikkim as a state in 1975. The amendment is 36th amendment that created Sikkim as a state. Okay, so I think all you are very clear about the part 1 of the Indian Constitution, union and its territory, and the important facts associated with our exam. So let's move on to the next part, part 2. What is part 2? It is about the citizenship. Okay, so part 2, we are having 5 to 11, 5, 6, 7 up to 11 articles, and I will mention each and every one right like this. So Art 5 is citizenship. Okay, so 5 to 8, definitely we can say it is 5 to 8 deals with the citizenship at the time of commencement of the constitution. You see that Article 5 citizenship, 6 migrants from Pak, 7 to Pak, 8 the parent of Indian origin. So Article 5 to 7, it is talking about the citizenship at the time of commencement. Okay, and you can see Article 9, 10, 11. Okay, so Article 9 will be terminated, the citizenship will be terminated if the person acquires citizenship of another country. Okay, and legal provisions relating to the acquisitions and termination of citizenship of India are contained in the Act, Citizenship of India Act 1955. Okay, so how the legal provisions are related to the termination, everything. So don't forget that Act, Citizenship Act, in which year? 1955. Okay, and definitely a person can become a citizen of India even if born outside India, if his or her father or mother is a citizen of India at the time of the person's birth. Okay, so 9, what they are talking about? Voluntary acquire foreign citizenship. 10, continuance of citizenship. 11, parliamentary law. Okay, so how many articles are important? 5 to 11 articles are important. So here I have one point. According to the 1955 Citizenship Act of 1955, that enumerates 5 ways to acquire citizenship. So you can acquire citizenship by 5 ways. 1 by birth, second by descent, that means born outside. Okay, third by registration. Okay, fourth by naturalization. Naturalization means by government is granting a certificate to a person, like Mother Teresa. Okay, and the fifth one is territories incorporation. So we are acquiring some territories and we are giving them the Aadhaar card and citizenship, like that. These are the five ways that you are acquiring the citizenship, and we have 3 ways that you are losing it. Losing by renunciation, deprivation, and termination. Renunciation means what? You are renouncing that I don't need your citizenship. So you are renouncing the citizenships. And second one is deprivation, means you find disloyal to the Constitution of India. That's the point there. Deprivation means disloyal to the Constitution, then your citizenship will be terminated. And the last one is termination. That means the complete termination, that if you choose the citizenship of other nation, then you don't have an Indian citizenship, because India definitely support single citizenship. Okay, so these are the important citizenship related articles and details and the facts. So we now covered part 1 of the Constitution and part 2 of the Constitution. Now the most important one, part 3, articles 12 to 35. So let's start with the fundamental rights. Okay, so the concept of fundamental rights was definitely has its origin in the Bill of Rights of the USA. So Bill of Rights means what? Bill of Rights is the name of the Constitution of USA. So USA, from where we take the concept of fundamental rights simply. Okay, let's go in details. Okay, and there is one more point, that is fundamental rights is a charter of rights contained in the Constitution of India. What they guarantees, what the fundamental rights guarantee a citizens? It guarantee a citizen the civil liberties. Okay, that means civil liberties, that he can lead their life in peace and harmony as a citizen of India. So it is the important point. The civil liberties are provided by the fundamental rights. Okay, so these rights, fundamental rights, apply to all citizens irrespective of race, place of birth, religion, caste, creed, color, or gender. Okay, and the next important point that you have to come to know, these fundamental rights are enforceable by the court subject to certain restrictions. That means if you are not doing it, then the court can implement or impose these kind of rules, fundamental rights over you. So fundamental rights are justiciable. That is the important point. Fundamental rights are justiciable. That means enforceable by the court, Indian court. Okay. And one more important point: fundamental rights are against the state for the protection of individual. Why? Because the government or the state government cannot impose anything like that. So it is a protection is all one side we have a getting a protection, the second side we are not at all getting a protection. So it is a combination of two. Okay, let's go in details about the 6 fundamental rights. Initially we have 7. One fundamental right was repealed. Repealed means removed from the constitution by an amendment, and that is right to property. Okay, so now we have only 6 fundamental rights. First one is right to equality. Second one is right to freedom. Third one is right against exploitation. Fourth one is right to freedom of religion. Next one, cultural and educational right. Next one is right to constitutional remedies from Article 31 to 35. So these important articles, these are very important. I will explain one by one. Let's go for fundamental rights, that is right of equality. So right to equality is from 14 to 18. We know it. Right to equality is from 14 to 18. And first one, fundamental rights, 14th article is equality before law. Everyone is equal before law. That is a highlight. Okay. And the second one is no discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, age, sex, birth, place of birth, etc. And the 16th one is the people have the right to choose their job, right to job. And the 17th one, untouchability, abolition of untouchability. And the 18th one is no title, like I am the Maharaja of this region. There is no title permitted after independence. So these are the important right to equality: 15, 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. So go through it and by heart one by one. And next one is right to freedom. Right to freedom is from Article 19 to Article 22. Article 90 is right to freedom of speech and the right to freedom of assembly and right to freedom of associate. So see the point. Speech, assembly and associate, that light blue box definitely leads you to the trade unions basics. You see that trade unions definitely have the right to speech and assembly and associate, right? And the next one is the people of the Indian citizens can move from any place to anywhere in the inside the boundary, inside the Indian states, and they can do their job there, right? And they can reside also. So what's the highlight in Article 19? Article 19, you can speech, you can assembly, you can associate, you can move throughout the nations and reside there and do your profession or job. So that is there in the Article 19. Article 20, conviction for offense. Okay, and 21, and there is an addition there in 21A that is amended later. So Article 21 is about right to life and liberty, and 22A is the right to education. It's very important, right to education. Okay, so Article 22, detention. What is the meaning of detention? Detention means what? If the government can keep you under detention or detaining you for doing some offences without permission, and they need to present you before magistrate within 24 hours. So anyway, there is a detention point. There is mentioned in Article 22 that is connected to the right to freedom of movement, right? So Article 19, 20, 21, 21A and 22. Conviction of offense means what? There is always a point that the rest of the people or the court will listen to you. If you are doing a crime, then also you have a space for expressing what you want to express. Okay, and next important is Article 23 and 24, that is the trafficking, human trafficking, or the 24 is against child labor. So 23 and 24, it is against child labor. And now we finished right to equality, okay, that is 14 to 18, then right to freedom 19 to 22, then right to against exploitation, that is traffic and child labor 23 and 24. Now we know rights of freedom of right to freedom of religion. So we have an additional point here. Right to property, I already mentioned you, initially there were 7 fundamental rights, now it's only 6, because the right to property was repealed in 1978 by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. It was taken away. but it is there in the Indian constitution, but it is not now a fundamental rights. It was kept as a legal right in article 300A. So remember, it is nowhere related to fundamental rights articles. It is long away because it's 300A. So that means what? Right to property is now not a fundamental rights. Okay, and one more, right to education, which I already mentioned, was added to the fundamental rights as article 21A. It was added in 2002 by 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. So don't forget, 44th Constitutional Amendment Act removed right to property, 86th Constitutional Amendment Act and 2002 added right to education as a part of the Indian fundamental right. Okay, in article 21A. So don't forget this one. So next one is the religion type, article 25. These articles are not that much important anyway, you have to know about it. Article 25, it is the religion. You need to follow any religion, no problem in that. You can practice and propagate it. 26, you have a complete freedom on your religious affairs and all. 27, those religious institutions and those affairs don't have any taxation. That means they're exempted from income tax and all. So it is article 27. And 28, they can run, religious institutions can run their own education institutions without paying any tax at all. 27, that's a funny point. Then comes article 29. We talk about article 29 to 30, they are cultural and education right. So 29 is talking about the minorities, 30 is minority institutions. Okay, and 31 it was repealed. 32, writs. That writs area is very important. Article 32, writs. I will tell you what writs is. Writs means there are 5 writs are there. We'll explain in the next slide and come back to this one. The main important writs is habeas corpus. That term definitely you heard of. And next one is mandamus, quo warranto, prohibition, certiorari. So how many writs are there with the Indian Constitution? So this is the writs are those powers associated with the Indian court like Supreme Court and High Court, okay, to safeguard the fundamental rights. So writs are what? Writs are the watchdog of fundamental rights. So that's why Supreme Court and High Courts are definitely called as the watchdog or the protector of the fundamental rights of Indian Constitution. So how they are protecting, the Supreme Court and High Court, how they are protecting the fundamental rights? They uses their additional powers. Those powers we call it as writs, and there are 5 writs. Habeas corpus. What's habeas corpus? To have the body. If someone is missing, okay, someone is kidnapped by someone, then the court will order to bring his body before the court. To have the body, that is habeas corpus. Likewise, mandamus, the government is some officials are not at all performing their duty correctly, then the High Court and the Supreme Court can interfere and command him to do his duty or perform his duty clearly. That is mandamus. And the quo warranto, on what authority? They are asking, the High Court or the higher court are asking to the lower court that why or how you are acting on that point, because you don't have any authority to act. So they are questioning the legality of the point. That is quo warranto. Prohibition means simply the superior court to the lower court saying that don't proceed with the case. Okay, that is prohibiting the case movements and all. And after prohibiting, definitely the higher court can say to the lower court that transfer that case to me, because we will do it, we will take it. And that is certiorari, to be certified higher court to the lower court to transfer the case to it. So writs are those points or those powers associated with the court to handle, to safeguard the fundamental rights through habeas corpus, mandamus, quo warranto, prohibition and certiorari. Okay, so definitely you know that writs, article 32 is talking about the Supreme Court writs, and there is one more article, article 226, talking about the High Court writ. So the article is different for Supreme Court and High Court when we deal with writs, don't forget that. 226 is connected with the High Court writs, and 32 definitely it is Supreme Court writ. And as we definitely know that jurisdiction is wider for High Court. Jurisdiction means what? Their area of their circle of influence. Okay, the definitely High Court is the court where the people can approach easily, because those courts are very close to us, right? So it is near to us. So Supreme Court is very far from us. So most of the time we file the case against our issues and all definitely in the higher court first. So the jurisdiction is wider for the High Court, and those jurisdictions related to the writs are mentioned in article 226, and the same type of writs are there in Supreme Court for us for safeguarding our fundamental rights. That's mentioned in Article 32 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so I think it's very clear about the 5 fundamental right protecting writs, right? Okay, so now we are talking about one more point. The last portion, we are getting to the last, that is part 4, Article 36 to 51, DPSP. I already mentioned you that idea of directive principle of state policy. It is an idea, right? For making any constitution act or anything, we are following the ideas. The ultimate point, you know what? This directive principle of state policy, the idea of this DPSP was borrowed from Irish or Ireland. So the Irish constitutions borrowed or give us this idea. That's why we have a DPSP in our constitution. Okay, and this part 4 of article DPSP, the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar called this portion as the novel feature of the constitution. Definitely, because this DPSP definitely aiming at the economic, social and democratic welfare of the people. So ultimately this is for what? This is for the state and the central government to do something good for the people or citizen of India based on socialism, Gandhian principles and liberal ideas. Okay, so these are the guidelines to the central and the state government to kept in mind while framing laws and policies. Okay, and the important point here is these DPSP or directive principles are not enforceable by any court, and also it is not at all justiciable. That is non-justiciable rights of the people. Okay, and DPSP cannot be suspended in any circumstances. That is also highlight point. Not at all suspended, and it is for the welfare of the state, not enforceable and non-justiciable. And I am not at all mentioning all the fundamental all the articles related to DPSP. We are only following the important DPSPs that the CBSE will ask for your exam. That is 39A, free legal aid. That means if I do some crime, definitely the government will listen to, or the court will listen to my side also. So for that, they will give me a free legal aid. Mention that point in Article 39A. So Article 40, they are talking about the village panchayat. Okay, village panchayat, and 43B, cooperative societies. Okay, and 44, uniform civil code. Uniform civil code, you know that we have an Indian penal code. So if someone do crime or anything, definitely the crime is calculated and measured based on the intensive crime or civil crime or criminal crime based on Indian penal code. Likewise, we have some more code is in the uniform civil code related to the uniform civil matters. Okay, and you know what? Only one state where this uniform civil code was implemented, that is Goa. No other state, not even now, implemented uniform civil code. Let's see. It is in Article 44 of the Indian Constitution. 45, they are talking about free and compulsory education. Okay, it is also in Article 21A where we are talking about right to education as a fundamental right, right? So in DPSP also we are having what? We are having this free and compulsory education point. It is in Article 45. And the 50, Article 50 is the separation of judiciary from executives. You know what? In Indian Constitution we are having 3 bodies. One, it is legislative bodies. Second, executive bodies. 3, judicial bodies. So legislative bodies are those bodies, those people that the people of India are electing them and sending them to the parliament. So those people will make, those elected people or those legislative people will make some law for the citizens of India. So those law that the legislative bodies are making will be implemented by the executive bodies like IAS officers. So the lawmakers are legislative bodies and executive bodies will implement it. So while implementing the laws, definitely they find some difficulties, and all the citizens, the common man will find some difficulties. So there the common man will get help from the judicial bodies. Okay, so judiciary definitely don't have any connection with legislative bodies and executive bodies. It is a separate body. Then only they can perform for the people of India. So it is separation of judicial bodies and executives from executives. It is mentioned in Article 50 of the Indian Constitution. This is a very important directive principle of state policy articles in part 4, And now we are talking about the last one of this session, that is part 4a. Okay, it was 51a. Article 50. See, fundamental duties is there in part 4. And you can see here that we have only one article that is connected with the fundamental duties, that is 51a. And this 51a, initially you see that initially there are 10 fundamental duties, and in 2002 one more fundamental duty was added, that is education of a child as is a duty. So this was added to the fundamental duty list, and now we are having 11 fundamental duties. Don't forget, in 2002 by 86th Constitutional Amendment Act, there were education of a child as a duty, fundamental duty was added as the 11th one. Okay, and the idea of this fundamental duty was added. The idea of fundamental duty was added to the total constitution by 42nd Amendment Act in 1976. So till 1976 we don't have this fundamental duty article, fundamental duty part, right? By 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 we added fundamental duty as a part of the constitution based on the recommendation of Swaran Singh committee, and we added fundamental duties as a part of the Indian constitution by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. And later in 2002, 86th Constitutional Amendment Act give us one more fundamental right, fundamental duty, that is the 11th one, that is education of a child is a duty. Okay, so I think it's very clear right now related to the fundamental duties and all. So what are the fundamental duties right now we need to follow? First is respecting the flag and anthem, and supporting and following the ideals, upholding the principles of India, defend ourselves and harmony among others, preserve the environment and everything, protect the environment, preserve the culture and all, protect the environment. We will follow humanism, and we will definitely safeguard and secure our public property. And the 11th one by 86th Amendment Act, it was education as a duty for 6 to 14 years of age people, students. Okay, so these are the very important fundamental duties. And now we already completed part 1 of the Indian Constitution, part 2 of the Constitution, part 3, part 4 and part 4a. So go through the videos and make your own notes. So this part 1 to part 4a is very important for our exams. This is very important, don't forget. Okay, and whatever topics I mentioned in this video is very important. You make your own notes, connect this note with the first session of the Constitution and the second session. Next, in the sessions we will talking about the unions, the president, vice president, Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, etc. So see you then. Thank you so much.